Welcome to GNCC Espresso Live, a webinar series filled with information programs and resources to help your business. My name is Mishka Balsom and I'm with the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. The COVID-19 outbreak is a challenge to public health in cities and communities worldwide. Priority number one for municipalities is to follow the advice of provincial and local health authorities, along with key federal departments and agencies in an effort to slow down the virus. And at the same time, while we're dealing with a health crisis, our economies are in shock. Times are uncertain, and it is clear that no government or organization has all the answers. Today, in many ways, government matters more than it has in decades. In some countries, it has given confidence in how the crisis is being handled, whereas in others, it has shown its weaknesses. Above all, we're in this together. We are encouraged by the innovation and creativity shown by businesses that have been able to adapt their operational model to online and alternate methods of delivering services and goods. And the examples are plentiful. Equally, the spirit of generosity and support of the frontline workers and those most vulnerable in our communities has shown Niagara at its best. While thousands of organizations have moved into temporary home offices, closed their locations, significantly decreased their sales, and let go of staff, these same businesses are realizing that we are in for a long game, a marathon rather than a short sprint. Businesses have been loud in their asks from the federal and provincial governments on subsidies and provisions to rules and regulations. And the government is responding at a speed never seen before, as businesses are eagerly awaiting the conditions to change so that they can sustainably resume operations. To provide us with insight on the COVID-19 impact on specific municipalities across Niagara, we're hosting a 2-week series with municipal leaders, giving us a much-needed look at our own communities. And to start the series, we are joined this morning by Niagara-on-the-Lake's Lord Mayor, Betty Disero, and Mayor of Niagara Falls, Jim Diodati. Lord Mayor and Mayor, thank you for joining us. Before we get started, just a heads up, we're utilizing Zoom technology and all participants that are part of it are on mute, but we encourage your interactions. If you have any questions, and some of you have already submitted them via email or social media to us, but here, while you're part of our live webinar, here are 2 options. You will see a hand or the symbol of a hand on the right-hand side of your screen. By clicking that, we know that you want to ask a question and we will unmute you. So please watch for that. And the second option is a chat option. There is a field where you can type in the questions. We can see the questions, and please know that we are more than committed to actually trying to get through all the questions today. And as I mentioned beforehand, some of you have also or might want to use social media to connect with us directly, and we'll answer those questions at the same time. So let's get started. One of the questions that had come forward to us is tourism related, and it's no surprise. Tourism is critical to Niagara Falls and to Niagara-on-the-Lake, and COVID-19 is having a huge negative impact on it. How do you see tourism rebounding from this? And then there's a follow-up question in it's looking at, have you been able to assess the tourism impact? And maybe if I'll pass this on to you, Mayor Diodati, to maybe take it, and then I'll pass the mic on to the Lord Mayor.
Thanks very much, Mishka, and good morning to everybody. And thank you for hosting us. This is a great idea, and this is part of the new normal, where business is going to continue. It's just going to continue in a different way. And some people are struggling to get their head wrapped around it. And I just have to look back to 9/11. And I remember at that time, the borders were closed, people were stranded, nobody knew what was going to happen. The world had changed. And people said, oh, it'll never be the same. And they were right. It was never the same, but it was a new normal that we came to understand. And I know in tourism in the last 5 years, we've had 5 of the best years we've had in a long time. So it will rebound. It will be back. We've just got to go through a little bit of a tunnel. And the good news is there's light at the end of the tunnel. And no, it's not a train coming at us. It's light. And I know it's a bit of a long tunnel, but we will bounce back. Tourism is very resilient. And Niagara Falls is the #1 leisure destination in all of Canada. And in the region, tourism in general, 40,000 jobs directly or indirectly rely on tourism to put food on the table. So it's very, very important. It's essential. And it represents several $billions of GDP. And, you know, and one thing I've learned being in this role as mayor for the last 10 years, I've been to many places around the world. And even us here, we take for granted how famous the brand is. And I still joke, I say, we're the Coca-Cola of municipalities. We're the front teeth of the smile of Canada. And when Canada markets, they always lead with Niagara Falls first. And the beauty is we complement each other with Niagara-on-the-Lake. Niagara-on-the-Lake offers something different, but which is so valuable and so classy and beautiful. It's just nice that we offer a little bit of, like I like to say, the buffet of fun and excitement. There's something here for everyone. So whatever it is you're looking for, it's here. And people are not disappointed. So here's the way I look at it. People are cooped up right now. They're sitting in their houses in Toronto, a lot of people in their condos. They're getting frustrated. They love their families, but you know, too much of anything can get you frustrated. They want to get out. They want to play. We're social beings. We're tactile. We like to hug. We like to touch. We like to be together. We like to do things. And right now we're being deprived of all that. And the worst punishment you could do in a prison is what? It's solitary confinement. Keep people away from other people. And that's exactly what we're doing, voluntary. And so as the restrictions are lifted provincially, you're going to see people. I'll tell you right now, if the mayor, Lord Mayor of Niagara-on-the-Lake and myself, if we opened our cities back up, there'd be thousands of tourists already. They're waiting to come. We don't want them to come yet, but they would come. So we're not worried about that. We know international travel and trade is going to dry up for a little bit and people aren't going to be too quick. But the good news is gas prices. You read in the paper, the Globe this morning, oil prices are negative pricing right now. So gas is cheaper than it's been in a long, long time. And the good news is we live within a 1 day's drive of 130 million people. And these people are cooped up. They want to get out. They're looking for things to do. So we're trying to figure out how that's going to be. So for example, the Hornblower, they put 700 people on a boat. Well, how are we going to do that? Because there'll be a new normal. There's going to be social distancing. There's going to be, excuse me, hand sanitizing. There's going to be a lot of different things. So the new normal, we will adapt, we will adjust. And Plato said a long time ago, necessity is the mother of invention. So we will, and that was repeated by many other people, Edison included, we will come up with new ideas. And I'll give you an example. So now microbial sprays, they're using them in the TTC, and they can last up to a year where viruses and bacteria can't grow. People are gonna carry these sanitizers everywhere they go. They've got them, these little pen ones you can get now, go inside your pocket, quick spray. We're gonna do a little more, I think, namaste kind of greetings, more elbow bumps. They're just gonna change. So there's gonna be a new normal. I'm very confident that tourism will bounce back. We've just gotta get between now and when we open the taps up again. We have to make sure, because in Niagara Falls, we're a little bit unique. Our operators are all families. We're not corporates like in Toronto or Banff or Vancouver. So we need to make sure they're dealing with private lenders. They're not dealing with the big five banks. So we need to make sure we get them there. And I've expressed my concerns provincially and federally, and they're working on recovery packages to make sure they make it to the recovery. And we do have some big marketing plans that we're working on right now. That'll be the biggest ever. So we'll share those later on at some point, perhaps. But anyway, that's where we're at here in Niagara Falls.
Thank you very much, Mayor Diodati. Lord Mayor?
Sure. Jim is right. There is going to be absolutely a new normal. On our economy in Niagara-on-the-Lake is predominantly tourism and agriculture. We don't have a lot of industries in terms of factories and things like that. So when the border was stopped for the migrant workers and when tourism started to dry up, on March 23rd, as you know, we declared a state of emergency in Niagara-on-the-Lake because our economy would be so badly hit, because those two main functions were now going to be stopping, and that's all we had in Niagara-on-the-Lake, basically. So thank God the federal government, after urging from the GGO and the wineries in Niagara-on-the-Lake and across the country in the farming community, they decided to allow the migrant workers in. So we're starting to see good things happening in the farming industry. Tourism, I think, will be very different in that I think people are going to be looking at more intimate experiences. I think they're going to. I think the very large groups like the Shaw and Jackson Triggs are going to have to come up with these disinfectants and things to allow for larger crowds. But I think the new tourism, at least for the short term, will be a family packing up the car, going to visit our communities. And I think our hotels will struggle a little bit, but I like Mayor Diodati, in the long run, I feel we are going to bounce back because people want to visit, they want to learn, they want to see and experience other places. So in the long term, I think we will bounce back in terms of tourism, but it's going to be a different setting for sure. The province and the federal government will have to help in the short term with our culture sector, particularly. I know the Shaw is really almost at a loss for what to do next in terms of keeping people, as many people as they can, employed, although they've had to let some people go. So the provincial and federal government are going to have to help with that. I'm very optimistic that Niagara-on-the-Lake in the long term will do very well. We just approved at council a couple of projects that through the region that will help to enhance the experience when people come to Niagara-on-the-Lake. So we're looking not only at the short-term solutions, but council is also looking at the long-term vision for our town.
And I think it's critical at this point in time to not only look at the short term, but also the long term, because everyone is saying it's a marathon. It's not a short sprint that we're in, and we have to look at it from that perspective. There's a follow-up question that has come in, and it's a very short one, and I want to move on from there. Tourism represents a multi-billion-dollar GDP impact to both of your communities that are there. Have you been able, as businesses are assessing their financial impact at all times, and I have spoken to so many businesses, we're doing it every month, every week. By the end of the week, it looks different. And then by the next week, it's again the same. And some decisions that are being made in the morning seems to be totally obsolete by the end of the day. Has your your local governments looked at the financial impact? And if yes, what will be the financial impact of tourism and the loss of a significant amount of tourism probably for 2020? And it's just a brief follow-up question. Just wondering if it has been done and what dollars are we looking at?
Yeah, we're in Niagara. To me, Mishka? Yeah, okay. So Niagara-on-the-Lake is fortunate enough to be part of the region which started the Niagara Rapid Response Team. And they are, and I think our person that we're working with is Kelly Provo, and she is doing those calculations and looking at the economic impact for our municipality particularly. I can tell you that and a study just came out from the region, which we'll be discussing hopefully this Thursday at the regional meeting. I can tell you that for the town, we in order to confine contracting of COVID-19 to people, we said, don't use the parking meters. Parking is free, because we didn't want people touching the machine. That impact to us for a year is about $2.5 million, which would mean about a 25% increase in taxes. Wow. So yeah, so we are looking at how we can minimize that impact. It's not going to last a whole year, of course, but we're looking at how we minimize that impact too, because taxes and what we do with taxes will absolutely have an impact on those people in the tourism industry. And so we're trying to look at how we can reduce our spending because our revenue has certainly been reduced.
Yes. And
as you said, every 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, when the Prime Minister and the Premier come out, there's a whole new set of programs that to help people in business. And I just wish they would actually start giving out the money and stop announcing. Just start to give the money.
We second your thought on, especially when it comes to the 75% wage subsidy, Mayor Disero, because we are saying it's a question of days versus weeks until it's in the hands of the businesses that actually need it. So yeah, some of them, but nevertheless, we congratulate the governments, all levels of
Oh,
government,
yes.
with the speed and at which they make the decisions and the courage that they have shown. But on the same question, Mayor Diodati, have you been able to assess the financial impact to the city of Niagara Falls? Just a quick answer.
So our best guess, we're going to announce today at council this afternoon. So I don't want to preempt the council meeting because I'll get shot. I won't make it to the meeting. But yeah, we are, and it's our best guess. It's hard to say for sure. All revenues are gone. We're not even making people pay their taxes till the end of June. There's no parking revenues. There's no transit revenues. There's no rental of facilities. You know, we have a lot of hockey tournaments. It's all gone. And that 75% wage subsidy doesn't really help us when the businesses are closed. And I said that to federal levels. And that's why they're supposed to come up with some more announcements on tourism. Banff is having a very similar situation. Everyone's laid off. And we're not going to have hundreds or thousands, in this case, of people coming to work with nothing to do because we're closed. Said there's got to be a better way of spending the money. And, you know, I've been in business for 25 years before doing this, so I don't want to waste any money. I mean, of course, we're going to take money, but we'd rather have targeted money. We don't want to waste it. So we're still working on those numbers. It's a best guess at this point because we don't know where the finish line is exactly, but we've got some short, medium, and long-term pain numbers that we'll be announcing.
And I think municipalities, the same as all businesses, are in the same boat. Businesses, any size of business is doing exactly the same. They're looking at the short term, mid-term, long term, and saying and adjusting their plans as we're moving forward and as this situation is evolving. Here's a question, and both of you touched on it. Municipalities are home to large-scale infrastructures, theaters, arenas, convention centers, community centers, because they bring together large groups of people. City leaders must pandemic-proof these assets as much as possible. This will be critical for communities that are dependent on such attractions. The sooner such large-scale civic infrastructures can be safely reopened, the faster our economies will be able to rebound in the aftermath of the pandemic. What are your plans for the reopening of key facilities? How are you preparing for it? And I know that many of these things are guesses. We don't know what tomorrow looks like. We don't know how long we're in it. But what are your plans? And maybe Mayor Diodati, if you want to take this one before passing the mic on to the Lord Mayor.
So every day, 7 days a week at 11 a.m., we have our EOC meeting, Emergency Operations Center meeting, and we bring all the smart people at City Hall together to have these discussions. And right now, the discussion's been more around closing things. And you know, we're walking that fine line of following protocol and causing social distancing and encouraging people to stay home. But there's that fine line of they need to get out. They're getting stir crazy. We've got, you know, 1 in 5 suffer from mental health. Counseling numbers are up 30%. And the other thing is, if you want to have a healthy immune system, you need sunshine, you need vitamin D, you need exercise, fresh air, nutrition, and rest. Those 5 things all matter. So you don't want to compromise your immune system by hiding in the fruit cellar with powdered milk, you know, rationing your food and being afraid to go out. So there's that happy medium. Common sense will always prevail, and everything in moderation. So we're walking that fine line because people are asking us right now, we're dealing with outside facilities. So the discussions we're having right now, Mishka, are, is there going to be a baseball and soccer season this year? And we're having that with our groups because they said there is a date by which we can't deliver the programs. So in the meantime, we are maintaining our golf courses, our ball diamonds, our soccer pitches, because a lot of people don't realize, they say, well, just stop cutting and save the money. Well, it doesn't work that way. Golf greens, a golf green can cost you $100,000 for one green. So you can't let it grow tall, then all of a sudden cut it short. You have to always maintain it short. Same with infields and ball diamonds, cricket pitches, and all these other things. It's a lot cheaper to maintain than to replace or repair. So we're trying to spend our money wisely, but we are an essential service. And a lot of these are our assets, and we don't want to have stranded or devalued assets in the community either. We've got a convention center, which is empty, but can quickly be turned into a field hospital if need be, and we've had those discussions. We've got 16,000 hotel rooms. Some of them are already housing frontline workers, and we're having ongoing discussions with other people that might have been compromised because they need to isolate from their families. So we're using that strength to deal with our weakness. So we're trying to use our lemons to make lemonade. And we don't know exactly, we haven't quantified exactly how this is going to, but we do have all different plans and when we're going to open up, because all the hockey tournaments, we're booked solid for that. We could have another bunch of arenas here, but right now everything's been canceled. So we're not sure. We're watching. One goal is by July 1st to have some of our tourist things up and running again. And we'll see if that date works. But again, we won't know until we get closer, but you have to have a plan. Right now, that's our goal. We'll see how it plays out as we get closer.
Very good. Lord Mayor?
Jim is right. We decided at Niagara-on-the-Lake that we would continue grass cutting. We would continue even cleaning the sides of the roads and things like that. There's a couple reasons for that. One, because yes, it will cost us more to bring it back up to standard if we stop, but also we're asking people to walk from home. And if they're walking through a park with their dog or whatever, we're starting tick season. So we have to keep the grass short in order to make it safe for people to walk through parks. We also have Niagara-on-the-Lake is the only municipality in the region that has their own irrigation system, and it's an open system and a drainage ditch system. And we have to keep those ditches and that irrigation system clear of Phragmites. What's been happening over the last few years is that these Phragmites are now, their roots are so deep, they're clogging up our systems. And if we don't maintain things like that, we will be in a worse position once we get started again. With respect to arenas and ball fields and all of that, we are, as Mayor Diodati said, we're still in the stage that we're trying to enforce and protect so we can actually flatten the curve. And we have brought people together to start to look at what is the date. Our June 30th is, we've closed everything till June 30th. And then after June 30th, how do we start to reopen? Do we look at getting these disinfectants? Do we look at asking people to wear a mask? Or do we only allow a certain number of people in a room? We may open the community center, but we may not have 150 bridge players together in the same room like we usually have every Tuesday afternoon. So we've got to look at how the new normal will also apply to our own facilities in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think that planning alone is humongous. Like that. So much detail because it is times we have never seen them before. We use as reference all the information that we can get, and we're looking at European countries probably right now that are starting to responsibly open up their economies again and to learn from there. We have one of our participants, Jim Ryan, had put his hands up, and so I'm going to pass the mic over to him and see if we can get him to speak. Jim, can you hear us?
Hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
And the mic is all yours.
Okay. Our Lord Mayor knows some of what I'm going to talk about, but I think the process of reopening us, a big part of it is ensuring safety for customers and ensuring safety for employees. And the only way we're going to get there is by testing. And we have to, in my belief, and with a team at Niagara-on-the-Lake Hydro that we formed, we're looking at ramping up. How can we ramp up testing in Niagara region? Why is that important? First of all, for businesses locally, set aside the tourist industry for a moment. If you're running a small business, if you can assure your staff that they can come to work and be safe because everyone has been tested, and the frequency of that testing has yet to be determined, that opens up those businesses. As far as the hospitality end goes, if we can assure customers both locally and outside of the region that the staff working in that facility have all been tested, that there may be a protocol for when customers come into the facility where they're checked for temperature or whatever, but we give them a feeling that they can come to things in Niagara that are safe. And that's the, and once and if we start to roll that out, because a vaccine, which will may be a long way off, and if we get this in place, we can stop it now or slow it down and going forward in the future. So what I'm looking forward to is we hope to have a plan in place in the next 30 days and for business to say, hey, we support this, and we'll put some numbers behind it.
Thank you very much, Jim. I think this question maybe is for you, Lord Mayor, and just looking at a very valid concern of the concern of safety as we're moving forward. Would you like to?
Sure. Yeah, there's no question. Any expert you talk to, any news show you listen to, all talks about the importance in recovery about testing, and actually at the end, getting a vaccine. Jim is absolutely right, and I was thrilled to be part of a discussion at Niagara-on-the-Lake Hydro, which will hopefully open up a whole building or buildings or system put in place that people can be tested as required in a way that's not intrusive, that they can go in for a test if they feel like they have symptoms of COVID-19. This will be very important, I think, to the tourism industry, particularly in places where there's a lot of close contact, or there's a lot of festivals, or things happening in Niagara-on-the-Lake, or people just going to work to a regular day. If they know their colleagues have been tested, it gives them that comfort level that they need. And if people are getting tested more frequently, or if they're feeling bad, when eventually there is a vaccine, they will be able to get a treatment for the COVID-19. All of that will be a major part of our new reality coming forward. And I applaud Jim Ryan and the board members of Niagara-on-the-Lake Hydro for putting the effort in to try to come up with solutions for this.
Yeah, I do too. I do, and we have advocated for significant increase to the testing, and I think that the testing will be one of the most critical aspects of actually reopening our economy. But you mentioned something, and this is maybe a perfect time for this particular question that had been emailed to us. We are in the midst of a massive experiment called remote work. So if you look at my background, you probably look at some of our backgrounds, but as we're conducting this webinar, it's in our home. And possibly some organization might actually find it more effective in the long run to have and create a much stronger remote work aspect to their business. What can municipalities do to support a remote workforce to make them feel connected to their cities, to their towns, and to be a vital part of the community? And Mayor Diodati, if I could ask you maybe to start out with this one.
Yeah, thanks, Mishka. And it's ironic that I'd be asked that question right after Jim Ryan spoke. Jim Ryan is one of the founding fathers of Niagara Regional Broadband. And this is something everybody in this call should be aware of and certainly proud of. When you have a locally owned, municipally operated and owned fiber company, wow, talk about timing. And in business, everything's about timing. And the timing that we own it now, in light of the fact that we're doing a virtual meeting right now and people need more fiber, they need more broadband. They're letting up more of their fiber more now than ever. And currently, for those of you that don't know, the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake and the city of Niagara Falls own 100% of Niagara Regional Broadband. And our focus is on economic development and the community here in Niagara region. So we bring fiber to places that the big telcos would ignore because there's not enough critical mass. But for us, this is our backyard. This is where we invest. And when all of a sudden the world went sideways with COVID-19 and nobody had enough bandwidth, who do they reach out to? They go to Niagara Regional Broadband. And I can tell you, I've received some incredible letters from some of the CIOs around the region. And you should know, for your viewers, that we supply the fiber for the MUSH sector, which is the municipalities, universities, schools, hospitals. So Brock, Niagara College, all the city halls, all the high schools, elementary schools, the list goes on. It's exhaustive. And at the region, we're having virtual meetings. We're going to have one tonight at 6:30, and it's going to be fully virtual. So most we're not prepared. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody prepared. So that's one of the ways that we're prepared, and we're better situated than most cities. And one other thing, Mishka, I do want to add, I'm going to announce this afternoon. I'm going to be creating the Mayor's Back to Business COVID recovery team. Easy for me to say. And we're going to have a focus on recovery. And exactly the example that Jim Ryan used. You know, you go to Toronto, the health department gives restaurants notes to put up in the window to let them know you've been inspected and you passed the inspection. And we have the same thing here for restaurants in Niagara, Infodine. And a lot of restaurants are happy to say, yes, we've been inspected. Yes, we're safe. Well, there's probably going to be something similar for COVID. We're a COVID-friendly business. What do? You want to make sure the person serving your food has taken precautions. So it's going to be the new normal, and this will be part of the strategy.
All right. Lord Mayor, you want to touch on it as well?
Sure, certainly.
1 second, please. I think you're cutting in and out for one moment. Can you try again, Lord Mayor?
Yeah, is this better?
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Okay, it may have been my hands. So the question was, how do you make people that are working remotely from home feel like part of the city or the town? I think communication is going to be very important going forward. I do know just people hearing the messages coming from our town hall, from myself, the CAO, and others, feel like they are being informed and that they are part of the community in that regard. I think as more people might plan to work from home, I think different technologies like, is it Bang the Table or Join the Conversation, just to continue that conversation with the community, even if it is from a distance, I think will be very helpful in managing to bring the community together more and more. While I know that people want to get out and socialize and meet with each other, and as we start to open up our parks again, people will be able to do that from a distance. But again, information and communication will be a large part of making people feel like they're part of the town.
I fully agree, actually. We at the GNCC on a daily basis provide a daily update to the business community, basically capturing what announcements have been made at the municipal, provincial, and federal level. And that amount of just regular communication is so critical for people to connect, because everyone has questions, everyone is looking for answers and for some guidance, because everyone is rewriting their business plan every week from scratch again as we're moving.
Yes.
All of us, all communities across Niagara, but especially your two communities, have a lot of restaurants, bars, specialty stores, hardware stores, and other shops that create jobs and lend unique character to your municipalities. But they are at a severe economic risk right now. Some projections, negative projections, suggest that as many as 75% of them may not survive the current crisis. And we have to just look at that. If you're a small to medium-sized business, your cash flow is about 27 days in Canada. So that's roughly what it is. And we are going to be in this for a longer period of time. This will change your downtowns and certain unique areas within your community, likely, or could change it. What are you foreseeing? What changes are you foreseeing? And how can a municipality deal with that? And Lord Mayor, if I could maybe ask you to start out with it before I pass the mic to Mayor Diodati.
Sure. Okay, so what we've been doing so far is, as was mentioned earlier, that, you know, people aren't paying their taxes right away. We may have to work on some sort of payment plan at some point throughout the rest of the year. I do know that we and the chamber here has been working with landlords to try to ease the rent payments for some of the stores, particularly along Queen Street, where rents are very high. We have been trying to sort out what impact is being held by restaurants and businesses, particularly in areas that, again, where the rents are really high. What we've been doing is try to circulate and work with restaurants that are doing takeout to have takeout days and have people actually go and use the restaurants. So what the future will bring, I don't know at this point. It really depends on what announcements come out at 11 and 1 o'clock every day, and how much help we can get from the other levels of government. I do know that Niagara-on-the-Lake not everyone will make it. We're trying to make that number as low as possible by trying to assist in any way we possibly can.
We really appreciate that. Mayor Diodati.
Well, Mishka, at the best of times, the odds are stacked against new businesses from being successful. It's definitely survival of the fittest, and it's not for the faint of heart. And, first of all, one thing we did at the city, we formed, it's called a Buy Local Business Directory database we've put on our homepage. And we're trying to encourage businesses to register and tell us what you're offering right now during COVID. So do you have takeout? Do you have curbside pickup? Do you have delivery? So people know you're open. Because a lot of people are saying, hey, where would you go? Oh, geez, I didn't know that they're open right now. And we're encouraging people, first of all, they're getting sick of cooking. Their families are getting sick of what they make, and they miss the variety of takeout. So there's a lot of places, fish and chip, pizza and wings, nachos, whatever it is you like, a lot of places that need that business. And I've been speaking with all the businesses, the big, small, and medium, and they're struggling. Some have told me, best case September, if things don't turn around, I'm finished. Some have said, as you said, the 27-day, I'm into my line of credit now. I'm not sure how far to take this. Do I pull money out of my house? What do I do? And one of your viewers had a good question, Denise, about what relief for commercial rent for businesses that are completely closed. And it's the small businesses, and especially the ones that don't have a payroll. Because a lot of the time, as you know, when you run your own business, you don't take money. You're the last one to get paid. And you run your own business. And that's why accountants will have you paying yourself for reasons like this. And until your payroll is at 50,000, you're not getting money from the federal government right now. So things like that need to look, the ones that are falling through the cracks. So the one thing, the Buy Local Business Directory as well, we've got an FAQ page on our website, and we've also created the Regions Rapid Recovery Plan, where we're going to reach out and we're trying to lobby for all levels of government for the businesses, for these ones that are falling through the cracks, because there are going to be a lot of them, and Lord Mayor's right. Some are not going to make it. We're trying to make that number as small as possible. So right now we're waiting for more money to come out and less announcements. So hopefully the money will start getting delivered.
Yeah. I think that sentiment mirrors that of a lot of businesses. I think a lot has come forward, especially to support individuals at a rapid speed. In some areas, we need help. And thank you very much, Mayor Diodati, for addressing Denise's question that had to do actually with commercial rent support that's there. We are also waiting more of the details. We have on our website all of the subsidies that are available to people. But in some of the announcements that have been made, we're waiting for the details so that we can actually convey it to the business community, which are critical. Both the federal and provincial levels have made decisions at lightning speed, courageous ones, to support individuals and business in an effort to minimize the economic impact on people and communities. It is encouraging to see it. What can be done on a local level to ensure that when we can sustainably resume business, that municipalities support them? And I think the question is probably geared towards all municipalities probably have looked at it, and maybe even on a regional level saying, like, here's our red tape. And you hear often businesses fighting against a little bit of the red tape, saying, give me this license a little bit quicker. Can you help me out here? What are some of the things that can be done to support businesses so when they're ready to move forward, that they can move forward? An easy area to look at is probably the construction area and the field of development, which is always critical to inject the economy and allow it to move forward. Maybe Mayor Diodati, if you want to take the question before I'm handing it over.
Sure. It's a great question. And so what we did right away in Niagara Falls, we went and got a legal opinion from Aird and Barreless in Toronto to find out and to help us interpret the provincial orders, because we have business that don't want to stop. They want to keep moving forward. And we thought, you know, if we can move it forward in a safe way, why wouldn't we? We don't want to start from a stopped position. We want to keep momentum, because once you have momentum, picture pushing a car. You know, once you have momentum, you can use a couple of fingers on both hands and keep it going. But getting it started is the toughest part when it hasn't moved. So we want to make sure. So at our council meetings, we're still dealing with planning matters. We're still approving building permits. We're still moving everything through the process. And it is, from our legal opinion, allowed. So we're not slowing down whatsoever. Yes, we're working remotely in a lot of ways. But I made it clear to everyone here at City Hall, we're all about customer service and servicing the business. Small, medium business is the backbone of our economy, and it can't stop. It has to keep moving forward. And as soon as things already look in Quebec, the construction industry is opening up, you can see the light coming forward. And if they can do it in a safe way, I've had people call me and ask about their roofs. You know, they're saying, how is it not safe if I've got people on my roof fixing, I've got a leaky roof. Well, we don't want to leave that. It's a lot cheaper and simpler to fix a leaky roof than to wait and then have to repair all the infrastructure in the house and all the damage. So we're prepared. That's why we want to be right out of the gate and make sure everything's pre-approved. So as soon as a province says it's safe to do this, it's safe to do that, we just flip the switch. We're ready to go. We've got everything pre-approved.
On the same question, Lord Mayor, can you shorten some of the time spans? Can permits get out quicker? Can some red tape be reduced to support businesses?
Yes. So we've been also doing a lot of the pre-consultation meetings. So we're still open to getting questions and processing applications that are coming in now. From the construction industry. We're also looking at building permits and demolition permits to see which ones can go ahead now, which ones have to wait according to the provincial rules. But what we've also asked, I asked our solicitor to do was look at, because there's now a whole new system for appeals and LPAD and all the rest of it. And I asked our solicitor to look at all the appeals that we have in front of us and see which ones can be that are non-controversial and can be settled in terms of instead of waiting months and months and years down the road from now to get these in front of the LPAT whenever that might happen. So and he's going to be reporting that back if there's any possible solutions to any of these. That will certainly shorten the red tape in a lot of cases. You did ask a question with respect to combining permits and things like that. I'm not sure. We did sign an agreement with the region, and which puts some of the planning process into their hands. And that should hopefully, once that gets going, because we just signed it just before the end of 2019. Hopefully, when that gets going, that will also help to shorten the process as well. So we are still working. Some of us are working from home. Some of us are a day on and a day off, just to make space, because we don't have big offices at Niagara-on-the-Lake. But we continue to work, and hopefully, as the province, as Mayor Diodati said, as the province starts to release some of the rules, our construction industry will be able to start again.
It's on, and you're absolutely right. And on that topic of construction, one of the things that we have seen often in past economic crisis that we've had, whenever there was to ignite an economy again after a downturn, the federal and provincial governments have often focused on infrastructure investment at a local level to make a difference. And all of our communities across Niagara have benefited from it in the past. Niagara, as most, the same as communities across Canada, have an ever-growing infrastructure backlog. But then also we have issues with affordable housing and others. If you could talk to the provincial and federal government and would say, like, here would be our priority infrastructure investments in your respective communities, what would you ask for? And Lord Mayor, if I could ask you to go first.
Sure. Okay, give me one sec. All right, so we are, two things I think would be of interest to me from the provincial and federal government. The first one would be tourism infrastructure. And that's, again, what we've been approving and will be requesting the province and the feds to assist us with in terms of traffic congestion. So that way the city, the town remains livable, and yet we get a bump, hopefully, to our tourism industry. The second thing for me would be absolutely affordable housing. We do have, or we did have in 2019, all these proposals and approvals for applications from different long-term care homes and so on. And so what we need once they're built is people to work there. Like one of them, I think Tapestry was going to be looking for 200 new employees. Pleasant Manor was looking for 300 to 400 new employees. These employees are not, once these projects get built out, these employees are not high paid employees, and they need some places to live that are affordable. So that's what any incentives for affordable housing within Niagara-on-the-Lake, particularly in areas that would allow people to work and live in these particular accommodations would be helpful. So those are the two things: tourism infrastructure and affordable housing.
Both most critical to Niagara. Mayor Diodati?
Well, I think I'd have to agree with the Lord Mayor. Obviously, tourism, and you know the saying, brush the teeth you want to keep. And just by virtue of the fact that we have the falls and we've got all the beauty around us, and we're just a stone's throw to the fastest growing metropolitan community in North America. You know, a lot of people maybe don't realize how fast Toronto's growing by 100,000 people per year. There's more cranes there than New York, Chicago, and Atlanta combined. And it's growing so fast, and we have become their playground. It's not too far away. So maintaining that, but also diversifying our economy so that we don't have all of our eggs in one basket, definitely. And I know people will always say, oh, bring back manufacturing. Well, I met with Mayor Peduto in Pittsburgh, and they went from Rust Belt to Renaissance. And he said, that's what they were telling me, open up the mills. And he said, we knew that wasn't the future. They did it through education and through medical. And that's what we have the opportunity to do with our great hospitals. We've got great educational institutions. And now with the whole development of this digital world that's happening. And we can lead this with the fact that we own Niagara Regional Broadband. And you should know that we are attracting a lot of interesting investment. And a couple of the main things they like to ask were, back in the day, they would ask, where's your water and your sewer? Well, now that's a given. You know there's water in their sewer. Now they ask, where's your high-speed fiber? And where's your access points, and what kind of capacity do you have, and is it redundant, is it this, is it that? That's what they want to know. And the beauty is we control our destiny in that regard. And the other big one is having the GO train, because it's going to act as the umbilical cord to the GTA, and having that connecting into the fastest growing metropolitan area in North America, huge. So we've got some real neat things lining up. And what really works well is when the region works collectively as a team, and we don't work as 12 municipalities. And the greatest example I like to look back is the GO train. It was one of the few times we actually got our act together and decided, let's not go with 12 priorities. If you have 12 priorities, you have no priorities. And I liken it to my kids saying, Dad, I just want 12 things this year, for Christmas. And I'm like, yeah, good luck. But even this year, my one daughter, she wanted this expensive laptop. She said, I only want one thing. I don't want anything else. She got my attention, even though it was more expensive than the other 12 things. But when you go like that with that collective idea that we're not infighting, so we went collectively, unanimous motion of the region, and the GO train, it happened. And even though everyone said it wasn't going to happen, and I saved all the newspaper articles, I save everything. Whenever I need a little pick-me-up, I like to read them and show how we did it the right way, despite people telling us it wasn't going to work. So we've got the ducks lining up nicely for Niagara. I think our best days are coming. And when the day comes, I do want to mention, I noticed behind Lord Mayor Disero, she's got a lot of bottles of interesting things that we're going to crack some of those puppies and celebrate. I noticed some Beefeater gin, some Dillon's, Kahlua, rum. We should have a contest, identify the bottles behind Lord Mayor. What do you think of that?
And all I want to know is if your daughter got the laptop.
She did. It was the Apple, whatever, and she did. We got it. She made a compelling argument. I couldn't argue. It was good. She beat me.
But I want to take you up on one thing that you said, Mayor Diodati, and that is saying that when the region works together on what we can actually accomplish, one of the other accomplishments actually are the Canada Games that are coming up. How do you think COVID-19 will impact next year's Canada Games, Summer Games? And maybe if you want to take that one.
Sure. Well, that's a great question. And believe me, it's top of mind for all of us. I mean, the Olympics obviously have been delayed, and, and that's the biggest sporting event. And I don't know the status yet with ours, because there's a bunch of qualifiers for the Canada Games. So a lot of the Ontario Games, and they'll have to qualify there then to make it. So are those competitions going on? That's something I don't know enough about. In 1995, I actually ran the Ontario Winter Games that were held in the Niagara region. And I remember at that time, I had to meet with all the Ontario representatives for each of the sports. And that's a great question. Here in Niagara Falls, we're going to host golf at Legends. We're going to host volleyball at the Scotiabank Convention Center, and we're going to host baseball at Oaks Park. So we're doing a lot of infrastructure upgrades to be prepared. Oh, and we're going to have the closing ceremonies, and we're going to be prepared for those events. But I know there's a real good chance it may be delayed. That may be a benefit if they're behind in building the arena. I don't know. Again, you have to have your plan A and your plan B and your plan C. So plan A is business as usual, full steam ahead. But there's a good chance that won't happen, not because we can't host the event, because the pre-qualifiers haven't happened. So that's a great question. We need to be ready for all three scenarios.
Lord Mayor, would you like to respond regarding the Canada Summer Games as well?
Sure. While we're hopeful that the Canada Summer Games will continue to happen, I think it will not be our decision to make. I think the province and the feds, along with other organizations, will make that decision for us. I still think we need to continue to get ready and be prepared for what might come. And I'm very hopeful that they will be here next year. We are in Niagara-on-the-Lake hosting at White Oaks Tennis. So we're hopeful that things will go ahead as planned. But again, I think we have to be very careful because it's not our decision to, I don't believe it will be our decision to make. Although if we could get our act together in terms of keeping large groups of people safe, because that's what people will be looking at. How do you keep large groups safe? If we can do that and accomplish that by next year, I am very supportive of having them here.
I think you're right. I think the decision is probably likely will be guided by a different level of government too, in addition to the input from all municipalities across Niagara. We're getting close to the end of it, and here's one of the questions, and I think it's an interesting one. We are often saying we're all, and it's the truth, we are all in this together. Government, citizens, health system, nonprofits, private sector, we're all in this together. Are there ways that businesses could assist municipal governments, or that when you're looking down the road and saying, like, I think this is how our relationship is actually going to change? Because often in the past, we've had our own silos of interests, and we moved forward from there. And we have learned, and we see that this is not the way we can move forward at any given time in the short term or in the long term. Are there ways that businesses could assist municipal governments and vice versa in ways that we haven't seen maybe in beforehand? And maybe I'll ask Lord Mayor Disero, do you want to take it first?
Sure. We are learning. You're right. There used to be, and there was silos. There continues to be, but every day we are learning more and more how to work better with our business community. If nothing else from this COVID-19, it's given us the ability to actually have an honest conversation with our business community, rather than just yelling and screaming back and forth to each other, or taking very strict lines. So we have been trying to do that through Niagara-on-the-Lake, and I believe that our staff are learning the importance of assisting business through good times and through crisis because of what we're going through now. So I think I think the other side will be a better, more mutual respect for each other.
And Mayor Diodati?
Yeah, already I have to say there's so many great stories, and I know the media tends to focus on the downside of what's happening. They'll find the gray cloud around any silver lining. And I'll give you an example. A Niagara boy, John McCall McBain, who, some of your viewers will know him. He started Auto Trader a number of years ago. Real interesting guy. Lives in Europe now, and very, very successful. And he called me a couple weeks ago, out of the blue, unsolicited, and said, hey, my wife and I want to help out some COVID-friendly businesses and institutions and groups. What can we do? How can we help? And so we gave him a list of certain groups. He ended up giving us $250,000 unsolicited. He gave 125 to Project Share, the food bank. He gave 100 to the YWCA, and he gave 25 to the Project Share, the food bank. So I think I said that. Yeah, the Soup Kitchen and the food bank, NYW. 250,000. He did the same for his wife's community too. Johnny Rocco's group in town who, there's like every business, every restaurant, they're struggling. And they said, we're not making money. They went out with their food truck and they've got a wood oven pizza maker. And they made 3,000 pizzas for all the hospital frontline staff. They went to every hospital in the region and they made pizzas for them, 3,000 pizzas. And I said to them, it's going to cost you a few bucks. And they said, well, we're not making money. At least we can do something nice and make people feel good. And I'm hearing more and more stories like that. The Niagara Industrial Association gave $110,000. Our Rotary clubs have been given money. Zappy's, a pizzeria in town here, they opened up their washrooms for our transit staff. Marineland gave away masks for our frontline staff, surgical N95 masks. I mean, the stories go on and on. Our business community helping us in a time of need, even though they're hurting themselves. And I think that kind of stuff is amazing and people won't forget. And I'll tell you, I go out of my way to support businesses that give back. I go out of my way to do it. And I think people are taking note. They've got time on their hands and they're paying attention to what businesses are doing right now. And, when you really put the screws to someone, that's when you see what they're made out of. And you see some of them are on their backs. And what are they doing? They're still giving back.
Yeah, absolutely right. The generosity that we have seen from the business community for those ones most vulnerable in our community has been extraordinary across Niagara. And I think the examples are all the examples, Jim, that you used, and like 1,000 more. It's been amazing actually to watch. What it made us aware of is that actually the solutions as we're moving forward can't lie only in the silos that we've created. So when we are looking at an economic task force to look at what does tomorrow look like in other areas, we all have to come together. Even within municipalities and ministries, actually in different levels of governments, they're now looking at it and saying, don't have just each ministry write their own recovery plan in isolation of what the overall picture is. How can we work together? And that makes a big difference. We have 2 minutes left. I'm going to give the mic for a minute to each one of you. I believe, I can't even remember who I start with, but maybe Mayor Diodati, if you can take the first minute just as a wrap-up comment and go from here.
Well, I think the message I try to get through to everybody, and I try to utilize social media quite a bit, and I didn't realize how effective and important it was to people. A lot of people are suffering, they're hurting right now, they're not sure what's next, they've never been through anything like this. None of us have. And the media have asked, is this like SARS? And I said, that was a ripple. This is a tidal wave. I said, it's completely different. It's everything at once. It's the Great Depression. It's everything all happening at one time. But the key is it's not a time to panic. It's a time to plan. And you need to calm down and you need to think your way out of this. And we will. Everybody's working together. We're all in this together. And we're all going to come out of this together. And it's going to be, you lift me up, I'm going to lift you up. And that's how we're going to help each other up the wall. And we will get out of this. And it's going to be a lot of good things are going to come out of this. I always say, even when bad things happen, good things come out of it. And like I said earlier, necessity is the mother of invention. I see some Niagara inventions already where they're, creating these sanitizing equipment, with peroxide misting and UV lights. A lot of great things. We've got our distilleries making hand sanitizer. I think a lot of good things are going to come out of this, Mishka.
I agree. Lord Mayor?
Yeah, so as we start our new journey through a new normal, there has been a lot of people that we are very grateful for, particularly in Niagara-on-the-Lake and across the whole region, who have come forward and done wonderful things for us. And in some cases, a lot of cases, the frontline workers have put their lives, put our lives before theirs. So this experience for me as a municipal leader has been one of learning about the extraordinary people we have in our community, and working together towards this new normal. And we will together get through it. And there's going to be some times when people are angry and frustrated and upset. But our message at the town has been consistent, and we move forward, and we will get through this. I want to wish everyone a good day, and just a reminder to stay home, keep your distance, wash your hands, and don't touch your face. And just a note to Mayor Diodati, just to finish, you're lucky the bottles are still there behind me. If you start to see them go, you'll know there's a problem. I'm not a drinker, so they'll be there for a while.
I think they will come over and join you one evening.
Yes.
Today's panelists, Lord Mayor Disero and Mayor Diodati, for being with us this morning. We will get through this pandemic. We will go back to work and school and gather in restaurants and theaters and sports stadiums again. But when we do, municipalities and their leaders will not simply return to business as usual. And it was good to hear this morning that that is not your plan as well. Today's webinar has been recorded and will be available on our website, gncc.ca, and will be emailed to all of you who actually took part in it and attended live. We spoke of a few resources and subsidies that were mentioned throughout this morning. If you want a complete list, please check our website and you will get a complete list. If you have any questions, if you qualify or not, or where to go, please never hesitate reaching out to us directly at info@gncc.ca. And lastly, to all the participants, thank you for joining us. Please stay in touch, and above all, to all of you, stay healthy. Thank you.